So I called my son who's away in college and asked him, hey, what is a dish that you would like for me to make for you to reference? And he said, how about something savory that I can make in bulk and store and probably freeze that can last me a while? And I figured something savory in bulk, what better dish than lasagna? So here I'm going to make a budget-friendly beef lasagna with ricotta, mozzarella, and Parmesan cheese. First, we're going to get a large enough pan that can handle about 2 pounds of ground beef. Put it on a burner and turn the heat to medium low. And while our pan heats up, we're going to go ahead and dice our onion. This time it took me about 6 minutes to get everything ready from the moment I walked into the kitchen and got all my ingredients ready. So we're going to go ahead and start our clock at 6 minutes. Now, some people tend to say that knife skills at home are not as important as it is in the restaurant industry. The most important thing about knife skills is safety and the accuracy of preparing your ingredients. We start by basically pinching the edge of the blade and then use the remaining fingers to grip the handle. We use our 2 fingers, we use our index finger and a thumb, and we pinch the blade like shown here, and then use the rest of our fingers to comfortably grip the handle. In a lot of videos, you see people use the claw method and they make it seem very uncomfortable. The truth is that it's not uncomfortable. You don't have to put your hand all the way 90 degrees. You can actually bring your elbows in, turn your hand, comfortably grip it, turn your vegetables. That's it. To make the claw, we bend our fingertips slightly under so that they cannot be hit by the blade. We use our first knuckle and keep the knife vertical. We rest the tips of our fingers on the ingredient and keep our thumb behind. Make sure the foremost part of your hand is your first knuckle, not your fingertips. You can use your middle or index finger. Now move the knife in a slicing motion while going up and down, allowing the knife to brush against your knuckles as we cut. Never lifting the edge of the knife above the knuckle. We slide our hand along the ingredient while keeping our blade in contact with our knuckles. This not only helps us stay safe, but the more we practice it, the more precise our cuts will be, thus ensuring more even cooking. Don't rush and take your time. Speed will come with more practice. Remember, the important part here is safety and precision, not speed. Now we add a couple of tablespoons of olive oil to our pan and let it heat up for about a minute before we add our onions. We toss our onions in olive oil to ensure that they get nicely coated, and we let them saute for about 5 minutes or until they get translucent. In the meantime, we prepare our garlic and add it to the onions once they're finished sauteing. Now we're going to make room in the pan and add about a tablespoon of olive oil. Throw in some pepper flakes and we toss in our garlic, and then we toss them around a little bit and let them cook for about a minute. Now we go ahead and mix it all around with our onions. Now we add our ground beef and we crank up the heat to about medium high, because the beef is going to cool down the pan and we want this to brown our meat. We go ahead and break it apart with a spatula or a wooden spoon and we mix it all around. This is going to take about 10 minutes for 2 pounds of ground beef. After our beef has browned, we go ahead and season it with some salt, pepper, and some Italian spices. If you don't have Italian spices, you can also use dried oregano. We mix it all around. Go ahead and add our choice of sauce. Mix that all around, combine all our ground beef with our sauce. Make sure it gets all coated. Then we cover and simmer on low for 25 minutes. Now we get our water started for our pasta. We season it with some salt. And we set our oven to 375. Now while our oven is getting to temperature and our water starts to boil, we're going to go ahead and prepare our Parmesan cheese. We're going to shred it along with our mozzarella cheese. Now for this occasion, I do prefer using fresh Parmesan cheese and not the fake stuff in the green can. I do prefer to use a block of mozzarella cheese instead of the shredded mozzarella cheese, because the mozzarella cheese that's already shredded has an anti-caking agent, which prevents the mozzarella from melting the way we want it to. Once our pasta water starts boiling, we go ahead and add our pasta. Now I'm doing a 3-layer lasagna on a 13x9 pan, so I'm going to use 4 noodles per layer, so I'm going to need 12 noodles. You don't have to use a 13x9, but that's the common size pan. If you're going to use a smaller one, you can adjust the amount of noodles you want to do. Now here I did extra noodles because I didn't think about it. I just went ahead and dumped the whole box in. And I'm going to use the remaining noodles for other stuff in the future. Now here I'm using my tongs to mix it up a little bit. We're going to do this every minute for about 10 seconds for the first 3 minutes to keep them from sticking together. This pasta usually cooks for about 6 to 7 minutes. Check the box instructions. You don't want to overdo them, then they're going to be too fragile to handle. In the meantime, we're going to prepare our parsley and rough chop it. Add it to our bowl and mix our remaining ingredients. The ricotta, our eggs, and a bit of salt for flavor. We mix it all together, and at the same time we have to keep an eye on our pasta and make sure we don't overcook them. After we're done mixing the ricotta, we're going to go ahead and separate it into 2 parts because we're going to put it into 2 layers, not 3. Once our pasta is done, we're going to go ahead and drain them, and then we're going to put them in cold water to keep them from sticking while we set up our layers. So here we have a 13x9 glass pan where we're going to assemble our stuff. First we put a thin layer of pasta sauce at the bottom to keep the noodles from sticking to the pan itself. Then we're going to go ahead and add the first layer of pasta. Here I'm going to put 4 noodles and overlap them. Once our first layer of noodles are down, we go ahead and add half of our ricotta mix, followed by a third of our ground beef mixture. Then we go ahead and top it off with a third of our Parmesan cheese and a third of our mozzarella cheese. Then we repeat again until the last layer is just noodles, sauce, and cheese. Now we cover the whole thing with a piece of aluminum foil to keep the lasagna from drying out. We spray some oil on it to keep it from sticking to our cheese. If you don't have oil spray, that's okay. Just pour some vegetable oil and spread it all around. It works the same way. Now we place our lasagna in a 375-degree oven and let it cook for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, we take the cover off so that it can finish cooking and develop some nice coloring. After the last 30 minutes, we take it out and let it rest for at least 25 minutes. If you cut into it right now, it's just going to turn into soup. If your lasagna has too much oil built up on top because of the type of cheese, you can go ahead and use paper towels and dab it to absorb the excess oil. Kind of like how some folks do to get excess oil out of their New York slices. Well, this recipe took about 2.5 hours to make from start to finish, which included about an hour and a half of inactive time. You can also prepare all your ingredients ahead of time if it makes things easier. It just might take a little bit longer. This is a budget-friendly recipe, but it can be costly depending on the quality of ingredients. Hope you give this recipe a try. And as always, the list of ingredients and instructions are in the video description.